August 18, 1966, the monsoon comes early. 6 men lie in the mud of a rubber plantation, surrounded by over 1,000 enemy soldiers. They have one choice left: call the artillery down on their own position, or die where they stand. This is the story of how 11 Platoon made the most desperate decision in Australian military history. And if you want to hear more stories like this, stories that honor the courage and sacrifice of those who fought in the jungles of Vietnam, then subscribe to Vietnam War Records right now. Hit that notification bell, because the stories we tell here deserve to be remembered. The rubber trees stand in perfect rows, 8 meters apart, planted by French colonists decades before. The ground between them tapped for latex. There is no jungle undergrowth here. No thick vines, no concealment, just open space beneath a canopy of dark green leaves. The rain has not started yet. It is 3:40 in the afternoon. The air is heavy, thick with humidity. D Company, 6th Battalion, Royal Australian Regiment, moves through the plantation in patrol formation, 108 men. 3 platoons. 10 platoon on the right, 11 platoon on the left, 12 platoon in reserve. Major Harry Smith commands from the center. They are hunting. 2 days earlier, Viet Cong mortars hit their base at Nui Dat, crashed into tents, killed 1 man, wounded others. Now the Australians are out here looking for the mortar crews, looking for revenge, looking for a fight. They do not know they are walking into the largest battle Australians will fight in Vietnam. They do not know that in 2 hours, 11 platoon will be reduced to 6 men still able to pull a trigger. They do not know that those 6 men will call down 500 rounds of high-explosive artillery onto their own heads to survive. 2nd Lieutenant Geoff Kendall is 20. He commands 11 platoon, 28 men. He walks near the front. His platoon sergeant, Bob Buick, moves with him. They talk quietly. Check the map, the coordinates. The plantation stretches east. Rows and rows of rubber trees vanishing into haze. Kendall feels it before he sees it. That tightness in the gut. The sense that something is wrong. The birds have stopped singing. The plantation is too quiet. He raises his hand. The platoon slows, and then the world explodes. Rifle fire erupts from the AK-47 rounds crack past, snap through rubber leaves, thud into tree trunks. Kendall drops. His men drop. They return fire. Controlled bursts. Aimed shots. The Australian way, not the American spray and pray. Every round counts. Kendall radios Major Smith. Contact. Enemy strength unknown. Engaging now. Smith's voice crackles back. Hold your position. Assess their strength. 11 platoon spreads into a defensive line. They can see movement ahead. Figures in black pajamas. Viet Cong. Dozens of them. Maybe more. The firing intensifies. An M60 machine gun opens up from long, ripping bursts. Brass casings spin into the mud. The VC keep coming. This is not a small patrol, not a mortar crew running home. This is something else, something bigger. Within minutes, Kendall realizes they are facing a battalion strength force, maybe more. The VC are flanking left, trying to encircle. He can see them moving through the trees. 100-meter intervals. 200 meters. They are spreading out, surrounding. Kendall calls Smith again. We're being flanked. Heavy contact. Need support. Smith acknowledges. He is already calling for artillery. Already calling for reinforcements. But reinforcements are 5 kilometers away. Artillery takes time to plot. Time to confirm coordinates. Time 11 platoon does not have. The VC are closing in. 50 meters now. 40. Kendall's men pour fire into them. Aimed, disciplined. Men fall in black pajamas, but more keep coming. Human wave tactics. The old communist doctrine. Overwhelm with numbers. Accept casualties. Crush the enemy under sheer weight. It works against poorly trained troops. It works against conscripts. But Australians are not conscripts. They are regulars, volunteers, trained in the jungles of Malaya, hardened in Borneo. They know how to fight outnumbered. They know how to hold. But there is a limit. There is always a limit. Private Peter Clements is the first to die. A single round punches through his chest. He falls without a sound. His mates drag him back, try to stop the bleeding, but he is gone in seconds. Kendall sees it happen, sees the first man of his platoon killed. He pushes the emotion down, locks it away. There will be time to grieve later, if there is a later. Right now, he has to keep his men alive. The VC assault intensifies. They are attacking in waves now. 50 men at a time, rushing forward, firing from the hip, screaming. The Australians cut them down, methodical, efficient, deadly. But the VC keep coming, and 11 platoon is taking hits. A rifleman catches a round in the shoulder, goes down screaming. Another takes shrapnel in the leg. Medics crawl forward, drag the wounded back, apply pressure bandages, morphine, but the platoon is shrinking. 25 become 20. The ammunition starts to run low. Kendall orders strict fire discipline. Short bursts, aimed shots. Make every round count. He radios Smith again. We need artillery. Now. Smith is alreeady working it. The New Zealand gunners at Nui Dat are plotting coordinates. 161 Battery. Royal New Zealand Artillery. 6 105mm howitzers. They will fire in support of the Australians. But they need exact coordinates. They need to know where 11 platoon is, where the enemy is. Smith gives them the numbers. The gunners load, adjust elevation, traverse. The first rounds scream out. The shells land 200 meters in front of 11. The ground erupts. Fountains of mud and shattered rubber wood. The VC scatter, regroup. Come again. The artillery adjusts, walks closer. 150 meters, 100. The explosions are deafening. Shockwaves ripple through the plantation. Kendall can feel them in his bones. The VC are pushed back momentarily, but they regroup. They know the Australians are weak, bleeding, running out of ammunition. They know if they can just break through, just overrun the position, they will win. So they come again, harder, faster, more of them. The VC 275 regiment is committed now. 1,500 men, maybe more. They have been planning this, waiting for an Australian patrol, waiting to ambush, to destroy, to prove they can beat the foreigners. D445 local Viet Cong. They know this ground. They know every tree, every trail. They are confident, but they did not expect this, did not expect Australians to fight like this, to hold like this. Americans would have broken by now, called in airstrikes, retreated. But Australians do not retreat. They dig in, they hold, they make the enemy pay for every meter. It is 5 o'clock in the afternoon. The sky darkens, not from night, from the monsoon. The rain comes suddenly, a wall of water, tropical, heavy. It hammers down on the rubber leaves, drums on helmets, turns the ground to slick red mud. Visibility drops to 50 meters. The VC use it. Push closer. They know helicopters cannot fly in this. No Australian air support is grounded. No, this is their chance. Kendall's radio crackles, barely audible over the rain. Smith's voice. How many effectives do you have? Kendall looks around. Counts. His heart sinks. He has started with 28 men. Now he has maybe 12 still fighting, maybe 10. The rest are dead, wounded, out of ammunition, huddled in the mud. Unable to return fire, he keys the radio. 12 effectives, maybe less. Smith's voice comes back, grim. Hold on, reinforcements coming. But Kendall knows. Reinforcements are kilometers away, moving through mud, through rain. They will not arrive in time. The VC are 30 meters away now. 25. He can hear them shouting, coordinating, preparing another assault, another wave. This one will break through. He knows it. His men know it. Sergeant Bob Buick crawls over. His face is streaked with mud. Blood, rain. He looks at Kendall, speaks quietly. We cannot hold another assault, sir. We are almost out of ammo. Kendall nods. He knows. He has been counting rounds, counting casualties, doing the math. 6 men. 6 men still able to fight, still with ammunition, still unwounded. The rest are dead or dying or too hurt to shoot. 6 men against 100. It is not enough. It will never be enough. He keys the radio again. Calls Smith. We are being overrun. 6 effectives. Need immediate fire support. Smith does not hesitate. I will bring the artillery closer. How close can you take it? Kendall looks at the VC positions. 25 meters, maybe 30. He looks at his own men, scattered in shell craters, behind rubber trees, lying flat in the mud. He makes the calculation. The only calculation left. 50 meters. Bring it to 50 meters. There is silence on the radio. Then Smith's voice. Confirm. 50 meters from your position. Kendall closes his eyes, opens them. Confirms 50 meters. Danger close. We have no choice. Danger close. The term every artilleryman dreads. It means firing so close to friendly forces that shrapnel can kill your own men, can wound them, can turn the artillery into a weapon against both sides. The safety margin for 105mm shells is 300 meters. Anything closer risks friendly casualties. 50 meters is suicide. But Kendall has no choice. The VC are closer than 50 meters. They are right there, right on top of them. If the artillery does not fire, the VC will overrun the position in minutes. Kill everyone. If the artillery does fire, some Australians might die from their own shells, but some might live, might survive. It is a choice between certain death and possible survival. Kendall chooses survival. He tells his men, "Get down. Get flat. Cover your heads. Artillery coming in danger close." The men do not argue, do not question. They press themselves into the mud, into shell craters, behind tree trunks. They cover their ears, close their eyes. Wait. At Nui Dart, 5 kilometers away, the New Zealand gunners receive the coordinates. They plot them, check them, recheck them. 50 meters from friendly positions, the gun commanders look at each other. This is insane. This is impossible. But the Australians are calling for it, begging for it. The orders come down. Fire mission. Danger close. High explosive rounds. Slide them into breaches. Lock them. The loaders step back. The gun commanders check elevation. Traverse. Everything has to be perfect. 1 degree off and the shells land on Australian heads. They take a breath. Pull the lanyards. The guns roar, 6 howitzers firing in unison. The shells arc into the rain, invisible, screaming. 30 seconds of flight time. 30 seconds where 11 platoon lies in the mud and prays. The first shells land. The world ends. The explosions are beyond sound. Beyond comprehend, they are physical force, pressure waves that crush the air from lungs, that shatter eardrums, that turn the ground till Kendall feels the first shell detonate, 30 meters away, maybe less. The shock wave lifts him, slams him back down, mud and shrapnel spray over him. He cannot hear, cannot see, cannot breathe. The second shell lands, closer, 25 meters. A rubber tree disintegrates, shredded into splinters. The third shell, the fourth. They walk across the VC positions, across the assault line. Men in black pajamas are lifted into the air, torn apart, vaporized. The VC assault breaks, shatters. The survivors run, sprint back into the trees, away from the artillery, away from the hell that is falling on them. They have never experienced this, never been hit by danger, close fire, never seen artillery used like a sword, like a knife, cutting within meters of friendly troops. It is terrifying. It is impossible. But it is happening. Kendall lifts his head. His ears ring. Blood trickles from his nose. But he is alive. He looks around. His men are alive, shaken, deafened, covered in mud and blood, but alive. The VC are gone, retreating, running. He keys the radio. Repeat. Repeat the fire mission. Smith acknowledges. The guns fire again. Another 6 rounds. Another barrage. The shells land where the VC are regrouping, where they are trying to organize, trying to mount another assault. The explosions rip through them, break them. The VC 275 regiment has had enough. They withdraw, pull back, drag their dead and wounded with them. They leave over 200 bodies in the bodies torn apart by artillery, by rifle fire, by machine guns. They have attacked Australians before, have ambushed American patrols. But this is different. This is something else. These Australians do not break, do not run. They call artillery onto themselves. Stand in the blast radius. Accept the risk, accept the pain. To win, the VC will remember this, will tell stories about it. About the Australians at Long Tan, about the men who survived by calling death down on their own heads. 6:15 in the evening, the rain is still falling, but the firing has stopped. The VC are gone. Kendall counts his men again. 6 effectives, but the wounded are still alive, still breathing. Medics work frantically. Pressure bandages, tourniquets, morphine. They save men who should have died, who would have died without them. Kendall hears engines, armored personnel carriers, APCs, grinding through the mud. A company is coming. Reinforcements. Finally, the APCs crash through the rubber trees. Soldiers pour out, sweep the area, Secure the position. Kendall stands, walks to Major Smith, salutes. His hand is shaking. Smith looks at him, at the 6 men still standing, at the wounded, bad, at the dead. He does not say anything, does not need to. He knows what happened here, knows what Kendall did, what his men did. They held. Against impossible odds, against overwhelming numbers, they held. And they called artillery danger close. 50 meters, 25 meters. Some reports say even they stood in the blast radius, accepted the shrapnel, accepted the risk, because it was the only way to survive. The Australians sweep the battlefield, count bodies, 245 Viet Cong dead. Confirmed. Counted. Many more were dragged away, carried off by retreating units. The real number is probably 5, maybe 600. D Company lost 17 men killed, 24 wounded, 11 platoon lost 1 killed, Peter Clements, but took the most casualties, the most wounded. They bore the brunt of the assault, held the left flank, held when they should have broken. The Viet Cong commanders will write reports, will try to explain what happened, how 1,500 men failed to overrun 100 Australians, how a single platoon held against battalion strength assault. They will blame the artillery, the rain, the reinforcements. But the truth is simpler. They underestimated the Australians, thought they would fight like Americans, thought they would panic, retreat, call for air support, and run. But Australians do not fight like Americans. They fight like the British taught them, in Malaya, in Borneo. Small unit tactics, fire discipline, controlled aggression. They do not waste ammunition, do not spray bullets into the jungle. Every round is aimed, every burst is controlled, and when they are surrounded, when they are outnumbered, when death is certain, they do not surrender. They call the artillery and they stand in the blast. The doctrine comes from experience, from lessons learned in blood. The Malayan emergency taught the Australians how to fight in jungle, how to patrol, how to track, how to ambush. The Viet Cong used the same tactics the communists, the same guerrilla warfare, the same hit and run. But the Australians know how to counter it, know how to read the signs, the broken branches, the footprints, the disturbed earth. They are patient. They do not rush, do not charge into ambushes. They move slowly, carefully. They listen, they watch, and when they make contact, they do not panic. They establish fire, call for support, hold their ground. American units in Vietnam often operate with massive firepower. Helicopter gunships, fast movers, B-52 strikes. They rely on technology, on firepower, on overwhelming force. It works, but it is expensive. And it trains soldiers to depend on support, to wait for the cavalry. Australian doctrine is different. It assumes you will be alone, outnumbered, cut off. It trains soldiers to hold without support, to fight with what they have, to make every round count, to call artillery danger close if necessary, to survive. The soldiers of 11 Platoon do not think about doctrine in the moment. They think about the man next to them, about holding 1 more minute, 1 more second. Sergeant Bob Buick will say later that he did not think they would, that when Kendall called the artillery danger close, he thought they were all going to die. From the shells or from the VC, it did not matter. They were dead either way. But he also says he trusted Kendall, trusted the artillery, trusted that if anyone could pull this off, it was the New Zealanders behind the guns. And he was right. The gunners at Nui Dat fired with precision, adjusted on the fly, walked the shells across the VC positions without hitting the Australians. It was a miracle of coordination, of skill, of desperation. And it worked. The VC broke, ran, left their dead behind. And 11 platoons survived. The psychological impact on the Viet Cong cannot be overstated. They had ambushed Australian patrols before, had killed Australians, had won small engagements, but this was supposed to be different. This was supposed to be a massacre. 1,500 men against 100. 3 full battalions. The numbers were overwhelming, the outcome certain, but the Australians did not break, did not run. They fought with a ferocity the VC had not expected, a discipline that negated their numbers. And when the VC thought they had won, when they were meters away from overrunning the position, the artillery came, not from a distance, not from a safe fire mission, but from right on top of the Australians. The shells landed so close the VC could see the Australians in the blast, could see them lying in the mud, taking shrapnel, taking the same punishment. And still the Australians held. Still they fought. It was a demonstration of will, of courage, of absolute refusal to be defeated. The VC had never seen anything like it. They would avoid large engagements with the Australians after a long time, would stick to ambushes, hit and run. They had learned the hard way. The battle also demonstrated the difference between Australian and American tactics in stark terms. American units in Vietnam were often composed of draftees, conscripts, young men who did not want to be there, who counted days until they could go home. They were brave, many were heroes, but the training was inconsistent. The doctrine was firepower heavy, the emphasis was on search and on body counts, on using superior technology to win. Australian units were all volunteer, regular army, professional soldiers. They trained for months before deployment, learned jungle warfare from men who had fought in Malaya, The emphasis was on small unit independence, on patrolling, on fieldcraft, on being able to operate without support, and it showed at Long Tan. D Company was cut off, surrounded, outnumbered 15-1. No air support because of the weather, no helicopters, no fast movers, just artillery and their own rifles. And they held. They won. An American unit in the same situation might have been overrun, might have taken catastrophic casualties, not because American soldiers were less brave, but because the doctrine was different. The training was different. The Australians were prepared for this, expected it, trained for it, and when it happened, they knew what to do. Major Harry Smith made the critical decisions that day. He coordinated the artillery, called in the reinforcements, kept D Company together, but he also trusted his platoon commanders, trusted Kendall to know when to call danger close, trusted him to make the decision. That trust is part of Australian military culture. Junior officers are expected to take initiative, to make decision, to lead. They are not micromanaged, not controlled from above. Smith could have refused the danger close call, could have said it was too risky, could have ordered 11 platoon to withdraw, but he did not. He trusted Kendall's judgment, trusted that Kendall knew his own situation better than anyone, and he was right. Kendall made the call. The artillery fired, and 11 platoons survived. That trust, that willingness to let junior leaders make life and death is one of the reasons Australian units punch above their weight, why they succeed when others fail. The New Zealand gunners deserve recognition too. 161 Battery, Royal New Zealand Artillery. They were supporting the Australians, had trained with them, knew them. When the call came for danger close fire, 50 meters from friendly position, they did not refuse, did not hesitate. They plotted the coordinates, checked them, double-checked them, and fired with precision, with skill, with absolute concentration. They knew that if they were off by even if the calculations were wrong, if the guns were not laid correctly, they would kill Australians, kill the men they were supposed to be supporting. The pressure was immense, but they did their job, fired over 500 rounds during the battle, adjusted continuously, walked the fire across the enemy, broke the VC assault. Saved 11 platoon? Saved D Company. The bond between Australian infantry and New Zealand artillery was forged that day, forged in mud and blood and high explosive, and it has never been broken. The aftermath of Long Tan rippled through the Australian military, through the task force, through the entire Vietnam deployment. The battle proved that Australian tactics worked, that jungle warfare doctrine was effective, that small professional units could defeat larger enemy forces. It validated the decision to send a task force to Vietnam, validated the training, the preparation, the emphasis on quality over quantity. But it also came at a cost. 17 men dead, 24 wounded. Families back in Australia received telegrams, knocks on the door, the news that their sons, their husbands, their fathers were not coming home. The battle was a victory. But victory in war is always bought with blood, with lives, with futures that will never happen. The men of D Company knew this, felt it, carried it with them for the rest of their lives. Jeff Kendall was 21 years old when he commanded 11 platoon at Long Tan. He is in his 70s now. He has spoken about the battle in interviews, in documentaries. He does not call himself a hero, does not seek glory. He says he did what he was trained to do, what any Australian officer would have. But the men who served under him disagree. They say he saved them, that his decision to call danger close artillery was the only reason they survived. His calm under fire, his willingness to make the hard call, kept them alive. Kendall carries the weight of that day. carries the memory of Peter Clements. The first man killed carries the faces of the wounded, the sound of the artillery, the smell of the mud and blood and explosions. He carries it all, as do all the survivors. They do not talk about it much, do not seek attention, but they remember. And they honor the men who did not come home. The Battle of Long Tan is commemorated every year on the 18th of August, Long Tan Day. Australians remember the men who fought there, who held against impossible odds, who called artillery onto themselves to survive. The battle has become of Australian toughness, of courage, of the willingness to stand and fight when others would run. It is taught in studied by tacticians, analyzed by historians. But for the men who were there, for the 6 men of 11 Platoon who lay in the mud and felt the shells land meters away, for the New Zealand gunners who fired with their hearts in their throats, for Major Harry Smith who made the call, for all of them, it is not a symbol, it is not a case study, it is a memory, a scar, a moment when they looked death in the face and refused to blink. The Viet Cong learned from Long Tan. They learned that Australians would, but they could not be ambushed and overrun like American units, that they fought with discipline and skill and absolute determination. After Long Tan, the VC avoided large-scale engagements with the 1st Australian Task Force. They stuck to mines, booby traps, snipers, hit and run. They respected the Australians, feared them. The word spread through VC and NVA units: do not engage the Australians in open battle. Do not give them a target. Do not let them bring their artillery to bear. The reputation of the Australian soldier in Vietnam was built on battles like Long Tan, on moments like 11 Platoon calling fire onto themselves. The enemy knew if you fought Australians, you paid in blood. But Long Tan also revealed the limits of courage, the thin line between survival and annihilation. 11 Platoon came within minutes of being overrun. If the artillery had been delayed, if the rain had been heavier, if the APCs had not arrived, the outcome would have been different. All of D Company might have been lost. The battle could have been a disaster instead of a victory. The men who fought there know this, know how close they came, know that survival was not inevitable, was not guaranteed. It was earned, with blood, with sacrifice, with the willingness to call down fire on their own. And even then, even with all that, they needed luck. Needed the rain to slow the VC just enough, needed the artillery to be accurate, needed the reinforcements to arrive. War is like that. Courage is not always enough. Skill is not always enough. Sometimes you need luck. And on the 18th of August, 1966, 11 Platoon had just enough. The story of Long Tan is not just about 6 men calling artillery. It is about 108 men standing against 1,500. It is about discipline in chaos, about trust under fire, about junior leaders making decisions that save lives, about gunners firing with precision under impossible pressure, about medics working in the mud to save the wounded, about reinforcements driving through enemy fire to reach their mates. It is about all of it, the whole battle, the whole desperate, chaotic, terrifying afternoon. But the moment that defines it, the moment that captures the essence of what happened, is 11 Platoon reduced to 6 effective soldiers, surrounded, out of ammunition, facing certain death, making the call. Bring the artillery. 50 meters. Danger close. We will take the risk. We will stand in the blast, because it is the only way to survive. That decision, that moment, is the heart of Long Tan, is the heart of the Australian soldier. The refusal to quit, the willingness to accept any risk, any cost, to protect your mates, to hold the line, to win. The rubber plantation is still there. The trees still stand in rows. The ground has healed, covered the shell craters, covered the blood, but the memory remains in Australia, in New Zealand, in the minds of the men who fought there, and in the stories stories like this, stories that honor the courage of those who stood in the mud and called death down on themselves, who survived by sheer will and skill and luck, who held when they should have broken, who won when they should have died. This is their story. This is Long Tan. This is what it means to be an Australian soldier, to look at impossible odds, to calculate the risk, and to make the call. Danger close. 50 meters. Fire. And then to stand, to endure, to survive, and to never forget the men who did not come home, who paid the price, who gave everything, so that their mates could live. That is the legacy of Long Tan. That is the legacy of 11 Platoon. 6 men in the mud, calling artillery onto themselves to survive. And they did. Against all odds. Against all reason. They did, and we remember. If this story moved you, if it made you understand what these men went through, what they sacrificed, then do something for me. Subscribe to Vietnam War Record. Share this video, leave a comment. Tell me what you think. Tell me what stories you want to hear next. Because there are so many more stories like this. Stories of courage, of sacrifice, of ordinary men doing extraordinary things. Stories that deserve to be told, that need to be told. And I will keep telling them, as long as you keep listening, as long as you keep watching, as long as you remember that these were real men, real battles, real lives. And they deserve to be honored. They deserve to be remembered. So hit that subscribe button, hit that notification bell, and join me as we continue to uncover the stories of the Vietnam War. The stories that history tried to forget, but that we will never let die. Thank you for watching. And remember, Long Tan. Remember the 6 men who called artillery onto themselves and survived. Remember them always.